Welcome to the official Colts podcast. Joining on the Colts Audio Network, we want to welcome you as well as say hi to you guys on the YouTube network. We come to you in morning, and I don't mean that before 12 noon, kind of a morning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G. Obviously, the playoff.
Alonzo? Morning?
Alonzo Morning, yeah. Wish we were talking.
Remember him? Remember that guy?
He was good.
Yeah, he was good.
Oh, boy. All right, guys. Yeah, it's deflation around here. It's deflation around Indianapolis. Disappointment is everywhere. No bigger than in that locker room. I know people roll their eyes when they hear that, but we've been there, guys. We've been there in the 90-plus degree days up at Westfield, watching this team come together and watching the promise of it was, and kind of the rug being taken out right from underneath us. The Colts team yesterday, no chance for playoffs, obviously one game remaining. You hate to be in that position, having a game that really doesn't matter at that point of the year. But I'm just putting it out there, what I've been hearing and the temperature of the city of Indianapolis and Colts fans. Disappointment over another big opportunity that falls short. JJ, if you can touch on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of anger. And there's nothing I can say to wipe it away. I mean, players are angry. Like I thought DeForest Buckner today, he had a media availability over Zoom. He was angry. He was frustrated. I think whatever emotion you're feeling about this Colts team is valid right now because they had a chance to beat a 13-loss New York Giants team, and they could not do it. Had they done it, we would be sitting here on this couch right now talking about you win against the Jaguars, you get two things to break your way over the weekend, you're in the playoffs. Right. And instead, this team feels as far away from the playoffs as they have felt in a couple of years. That's where it feels like right now. And Zaire Franklin talked a lot about it. He's like, look, potential just means you haven't done it yet. And we keep, the Colts had playoff potential this year, but they didn't do it. So, I don't really know what else there is to say about it. It's just it is crushingly disappointing, and whatever our listeners, our viewers are feeling right now is totally valid.
Larra, there's been some big opportunities, big games. We saw it last season, saw it season before, saw it this year. Hey, things had to get going. What is it? Is there an elixir out there? What is it that can't get this team over the next step? And obviously we're talking about a playoff drought that's going in year after year after year. And let's not forget about an AFC South title that's now going on a decade.
I have to go old school to my, notepad and paper because I went back and went through the post-game sound from yesterday. And, to echo what JJ said, DeForest Buckner on Monday was fantastic just in terms of, I thought going into, what they're experiencing as players and just, giving some perspective on what his experience and what that has been. So that's certainly worth a watch if you want to, hear from his perspective. Certainly, one of the most respected guys in the locker room, one of the most veteran guys in this locker room. But something that when I look to post-game Sunday afternoon, MetLife Stadium, hearing from guys like Zaire, as JJ mentioned, Michael Pittman Jr., what alarmed me a bit was the fact that when these guys were asked about what has it been in these do-or-die elimination situations that you guys haven't been able to get it done, and a number of them just talked about when you go into these games, you have to have a heightened intensity. There has to be greater attention to detail. Attention to detail, lack thereof, is something DeForest Buckner mentioned on Monday. Zaire Franklin hit it on Sunday. And I just think when you have a collective message of this is something that we're lacking, I think there's concern, surrounding that. But, at least you're pinpointing on, okay, we know what some of the concerns are and some of what the issues are perhaps, but that's just what we're hearing right now from those guys and what they're seeing, what they're experiencing. That's some of the common thread in these types of situations.
It's almost baffling that this happened again. I mean, you think back to 2021, the Jaguars game, where you got flat out beat in that game. You got flat out beat in this game. Those are Zaire Franklin's words after the game. And for it to happen again it really is, and I think a lot of players kind of expressed this too after the game, where they were asked sort of these big picture questions about, like, why do you think this happened? And there was just a lot of like, I don't know, which, and you can go back to the attention to detail and some of the things that created this loss. But I think
level of execution was another one.
It's the scope of it. It's the scope that this happened again that I think is so just stunning. And I think a lot of players felt that way of, this is stunning that this happened again.
I think also because you look to, some of these were in prior seasons. You have a situation this year that it just recently happened. You were in Denver and you didn't get it done. So you would have thought, hey, here you have a second chance that you were not promised. Things kind of fall your way on Saturday. How was it not, man, we've got to redeem ourselves for not getting it done in Denver? There's such a recent experience in which you can look to what didn't get you the result that you needed in Denver when you had an opportunity to put yourself in a fantastic position to be in command and likely get a playoff spot. So the fact that it wasn't even that you have to maybe look back to last season or, some of these previous, you could have just looked to 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right, Larra. This thing, I want to nitpick with you guys a little bit on this, okay? Because I want to preface this by saying I can't tackle anyone. I mean, I can't tackle anyone. I can't catch a football on Sunday. I'm not there. I'm not that guy. But when you talk about players and a standard that is being set in the NFL locker rooms, the elite athletes across the world, I don't want to nitpick on this stuff. But the little stuff, week 17 of the season, we're dropping pitches. We're dropping passes. We're missing tackles. We have plenty of defenders around a ball carrier that are coming up short. Those little things. That's what I'm trying to ask is like, can you guys give me some insight on that? Because at this point of the game, we talked about how much this game meant. We talked about the other seasons as well, but the urgency of this game. And they have drops here, drops there, missed tackles there, missed tackles here that all add up. You know what I mean? There were some big there were some Star Wars plays by the Giants yesterday that simply should not have happened.
Yeah, the New York Giants had 6 plays of 30 or more yards. And 3 of them went for touchdowns in that game. I was looking back at it. Since at least 2014, the Colts have not allowed a single player to have 3 30-yard touchdown passes in a game. And they gave up 3 to Drew Lock, of all people. Who, look, I'm a Mizzou guy.
That's your guy.
I'm a Drew Lock apologist here. He's a better football player than he gets credit for. But
it's a career year.
It's a career game.
Career game, rather.
For Drew Lock. And it came when you needed to win to stay alive in the playoffs. I almost feel like I just want to get up and walk off this podcast set because, like, what else is there to really say about it when we all watched the same thing and we all saw the same mistakes? And I don't honestly have any really good insight into why it happened. It did, and it's something that the guys on the field, you can tell how it ate at DeForest Buckner. It ate at Zaire Franklin. It was eating at Kenny Moore II. Those guys, Ryan Kelly after the game, how just it really kind of, it's not going to leave how they feel about this season for a really long time, if ever, because this season's going to be remembered as a disappointment for those guys. And they're going to think back to the Denver game. They're going to think back to the Giants game as like, we did this to ourselves, is something DeForest Buckner said, right, Larra?
That's exactly what I was just going to, Jace. That's where I was going to kind of pick up on, the common thread about it all is that a lot of this is not that the Colts have gotten beat. It's the Colts have beaten themselves in those situations. That's the common thread among all of this. And I think that could be what's most frustrating about all of it is that when you have had these opportunities, that's really what it's been. It has been, costly mistakes and it has been self-inflicted. It's been all of those things. Why? I'm not exactly sure. Yeah. That's probably
the talent's there. I mean,
the talent's there.
That is something that players have steadfastly stood by. Is the talent is there on this team, and I do think that's what makes it harder to swallow. Like if you're this upstart team that you're kind of punching above your weight, and you just run out of steam at the end of the year, and it's like, you know what though, like we feel really good about the direction that we're going because we competed in these games, and maybe we don't have the talent, but we played really good football this year for what we had. The Colts feel like their level of talent being up here and the results being down here, that's a big gap that they've got to figure out how to bridge.
I also think one of the things that's concerning is you just also are getting to the end of the year in which you don't necessarily feel like that this group, excuse you, so pardon me, my email here.
I just muted my computer.
Yes.
It was already muted, but I was like,
I should have. Well, I was listening to post-game sound. That's why it was up. So excuse me on that. But you're getting to the end of the year. You're in week 18, and you still don't feel like this group put together a complete 60-minute performance. Mm-hmm. Not one single time. I mean, we heard it, over and over. We have to be more complimentary and have to do all these things, and you felt like you got that going in the Denver game, and then that, fell apart. I thought that, what was it? I'm like now losing track of games here. You felt better about it against Tennessee for a majority of that game. Mm-hmm. But then you had a lapse defensively. Exactly. Yeah. There were parts of it still did not put together a 4-quarter. What do you look to going into this one as being like, okay, this was the best in all 3 phases game that this team has had?
The Colts have every single one of their 7 wins has been by 1 possession.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of become this telling stat of you can convince yourself early in the year that that's a good thing, that, hey, you're able to win these close games, and that's something we can really lean on. But when you get down to the end of it, if you haven't won a game by more than a score, and it's really hard to win a game in the NFL by more than 1 score. I want to preface it by saying that. But to not do that this year, and you still have a chance against the Jags in Week 18, but to not do that in a game that mattered for the playoff race, I think it goes to your point of just you never really played that complimentary football that, this is something Shane Steichen talked about yesterday. We haven't played a complimentary game this year, and I think that is one thing that shows it. It's just you haven't won a game by more than 6 points this season. 8 points,
Defensive breakdown, special teams breakdown. We saw that to open up the second half. That's not a good way. We lost the turnover battle in this, but guys, I do want to find some bright spots here. And I think for the whole matter, whether he goes next week or whether he sits behind whoever plays quarterback next week, I thought Joe Flacco came in here for a 1-year contract like he did, a 1-year gig, and did the best that he could and had some bright spots. And yesterday, I'm sorry, guys, this is the NFL. You know it better than anybody. You throw up 33 points. You finish with 330 yards, 2 TDs, the 2 interceptions, though, that he was. And you have 2 receivers that have over 100 yards in reception. You got a running back.
It's a winning effort.
Yes.
That should be a win.
That should be a win, but we came
because really the turnovers weren't what killed you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, the bright spot at the quarterback position right now, for yesterday speaking, good on you, Joe. You did what you had to do. Obviously, we don't like the 2 picks. We didn't have Anthony Richardson there.
One of those picks is also in desperation.
Right, it was.
Yeah.
But,
I'll give him one. Really, I'm sure he'd give himself both, but I'll give him the one where he overthrew in the Belton, the safety made that great play, but. Other than that, I thought he played about as good of a game as you can expect a backup quarterback to play.
And the stats were there for the specialists. The stats were there for Jonathan. We saw JT. It wasn't, he hasn't had that many carries for that little less yards, but it's still 125. He did, 2 receivers with over 100 like we saw. Kylan Granson,
first time.
3 big catches, 30-some yards and stuff. It was an offensive output that does not spell defeat.
The first time the Colts have had in the same game a 100-yard rusher and 2 100-yard receivers since. Do you know?
Ooh, that's good.
Since what 2 100-yard receivers and a rusher? Let's go back to the decade of greatness. Let's go back to Peyton with Reg, with either Stokely, Reg, Harrison, and either a Dye or Edgerrin.
You've got it. 2005.
05.
Edgerrin, Marvin, and Reggie, Week 9 against the New England Patriots. So there's promise there that you see from this offense and the weapons that you are. And the thing is, those are your guys moving forward, right? These are guys who are going to be part of this plan building in the offseason.
I think, when we are able to take a full step back from this season and really kind of take a more sober analysis of this team, I think the one guy who I'm going to keep coming back to is Alec Pierce. The season he's had and the strides he has made. That dude... I think it's become clear to me that we knew he always had this in him, but he needed an offense that would give him a chance to do it. And, last year with Gardner, it was a lot of RPOs, and that's not what his specialty is. And it worked. It wasn't like it was a bad plan. It was the right plan for last year's team. But this year with quarterbacks who are going to push it downfield more, you're seeing him. I mean, like Flacco just drops back and it's like, all right, 40, 50 yards downfield. Let's see if Alec can go make a play. And he does. The contested catches he's making in the end zone on some of those drag routes are like very, very impressive plays. I think for my money, I might say he's made the biggest leap of any Colts player this year. And that is really encouraging. If you look at it too, he right now, if the season ended today, which it doesn't, he would become the first player since Deshaun Jackson in 2010 to average at least 21 yards per catch on 35 or more catches.
That's nice.
I love a Deshaun Jackson reference.
Actually, Mike Wallace, too. Remember him? Great downfield threat for the Steelers. He also did that in 2010. So the season we've seen from Alec Pierce has been straight up impressive, straight up good, straight up an encouraging thing for this Colts team going forward. I don't know we're not into the like, oh, let's talk about encouraging things for 2025 yet, but like again, that's what I'm saying. When I really take a look at this, I think I'm going to keep going back to Alec.
Oh yeah, he showed out. I mean,
well, and hey, let's get another game like that this week too. You know, let's see it again.
I don't know what he needs for it, but there's a good chance that if he has, call it 5 catches for 100 yards, that he's going to wind up leading the NFL in yards per reception.
Well,
right now, he's 1 catch off the pace of being qualified.
And one of the things that I was talking with Alec about, because he's our guest this week on Colts 360, was how he established the rapport with both Anthony and Joe to be so productive and effective with each of them, because we saw week 1, it was the 60-plus yard bomb, beautiful ball, Anthony, off the back foot, throwing to Alec, hitting him in the end zone. And then in week 6, the game at Jacksonville, when Joe comes in, he goes for over 100 yards in the fourth quarter on 3 receptions with a touchdown, on the comeback. And so I think that one of the things that is impressive too about Alec is the variety of different quarterbacks that he's worked with now over the course of his tenure, and in particular this season, had that type of production that you look to. And he just said he tries to come in with the same, just with consistency. Every day, just tries to be consistent in order to gain the trust of whoever it is that's under center. And he said that the 2 guys who have really helped him in terms of the growth that we have seen, the consistent downfield threat that he has emerged as, he said it's Reggie and it's Pitt. Those are the 2 guys who have reiterated their confidence over and over, in him and what he can do. And hey, all right, let's get one more of those type of games out of you at Lucas Oil Stadium to close out the year.
Hey, the good news, as far as we'll find the good from this game, believe you me, as we talked about, Michael Pittman Jr. obviously had a great afternoon. Jonathan Taylor, a great afternoon. And then, on the flip side, finding the good in this thing is Malik Neighbors had a career day. And
he's a really good player.
Yeah, and just showed.
He's a really good player.
He's had a quarterback carousel as well out there. And he's
already in 1 year.
Yeah, he's a great player. Showed what he meant to the Giants yesterday and stuff like this. But I want to tip my hat to a kid that, is my Alec Pierce of the defense. And I would call Jalen Jones, and what we have the future looking like for that young man and the way he plays. And, he's got dinged for a couple of PIs and stuff like that. But, boy, he's a tough guy. He's a long guy, big stretch, long arm. And I think he's one of those guys that is going to be here for a while, and I think he's one of those guys that we're going to have to build on from 25 and beyond.
Yeah, he's a good football player, a guy who has absolutely earned a role on this team, hopefully a starting role on this team next year. The thing I will say, though, and this isn't about Jalen Jones, and this isn't about Alec Pierce. This is whenever you have a season that ends in disappointment, like this Colts season is going to end in, I think you kind of have to operate like there will be changes. And that's something that players have talked about. Everyone kind of knows. Jonathan Taylor, I thought, was really eloquent talking about it after the game about how, there are going to be changes. Yeah. DeForest Buckner said there are going to be changes. It's going to be uncomfortable. But I think that is what kind of has to happen. You have to take a look at everything. And I think when you do take a look at everything, you're going to look at Jalen Jones and say, that's a good player. Right. He's made a lot of improvement this year. We think he can continue to trend up. I think to kind of start projecting out on a lot of players here is sort of like, well, where are the Colts going to get better in 2025? And I think it can come from guys internally being better. It can come from guys coming in externally. It can come from a lot of different places and avenues. But whatever it looks like, however it's done, it has to be better. Because right now, and Jonathan Taylor, again, I thought he had another really, really smart thing after the game where he talked about the standard for this team needs to be winning or making the playoffs. But to make that the standard, you got to make the playoffs. And we haven't done that. And he was pretty passionate. He was like, the standard for being an Indianapolis Colt is that you got to be in the playoffs every year. But the Colts haven't made the playoffs now since 2020, and you can't establish that standard until you do it, and the Colts just haven't been able to do it.
And the only constant is change, right? You talk about it, the season ending in disappointment. Well, it ends in disappointment for everyone except for one team, right? Except for the Super Bowl champions. And even when you are a Super Bowl champion, there are changes that happen within that roster, right? With everything that goes on. And with your comments regarding Jonathan, Pitt touched on that Sunday after the game as well. He said, the first season I was here, we did make the playoffs. And I just thought that was, commonplace. He said, he said, yeah, I just thought we'd do it every year. Yeah. That was a little bit taken for granted, and that was the expectation. And then you haven't been able to match that since that game in 2020 when you went to Buffalo. And Pitt said, he's like, we've got to do something different.
I do think you're right, Larra, like every 31 teams on the season with disappointment, it's different levels, and it's like different variations,
degrees of it.
Right. Like, obviously, you lose the Super Bowl, you're like, oh man, we were close.
Hell of a year, but
right. Hell of a year, but that's going to stick with us losing the Super Bowl. But if you lose the Super Bowl, you're losing it to the best team in the NFL. The level the Colts are at is you lost your shot at the playoffs, losing to a team that going into that week was the worst team in the NFL, and that's a tough pill to swallow when it's that's how you go out, right? As opposed to we got beat by a better team.
Yeah.
The Giants have players too. Malik Neighbors, like we mentioned, is an awesome football player. He's a superstar already in this league. They got, Wan'Dale Robinson's a really good player. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau.
That guy's impossible on third down.
Yeah,
the amount of tackles he broke, second, third, fourth effort by that guy.
Right. So you give them credit, but I think if you look at these two rosters, the Colts have more talent. And that is what I think makes it so difficult for those guys to kind of digest is we should have beat that team. And now you got to sit there, and that's the same thing in 2021 with the Jags, where Colts had more talent than that team, but they didn't show it that day, and it didn't matter because they lost. That, I think, is where this disappointment really is going to stick.
Yeah, this will stick for a while. Guys, I want to ask you about something that happened. We talked about this in the offseason. You got close with him, found out some tidbits about him off the field and stuff, but let's just come out with it and let's just talk about it. 33 quarterback sacks this year with one game to go. Last year set a club record with 51. Charlie Partridge comes in his first year. Chris Ballard said from day one when he was Ballard here, offensive line, defensive line is where you win, lose football games.
Build through the trenches, right?
That's it. So how can that drop off be there? And I'm going to you on this, but I want to start with Larra. Quarterback pressures are a thing. We talked about it. Wasn't there last year? Maybe it is this year. We'll find out from JJ. But I'm saying from 51 last year to 33 with one game left, what is that? Because the personal has been there, and on top of that, you take that 16th overall pick, Laiatu Latu, and you throw him in that room as well, Larra.
Man, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
You're really throwing it at me. I do want to mention, of course, you sorely missed, and I think people may have overlooked when Samson Ebukam sustained that injury.
And that's
significant. That's your leading sack guy from last season. You know what, Jeffrey? I don't know. I don't know if it's an effort thing because
injuries come in. I get it.
But we've seen. I've watched so many situations in which you're rushing and you're sending guys, and they get close, and it's almost just whiffs. On quarterbacks, and it just does not seem like this unit collectively is playing as fast as maybe they previously have.
Yeah, the numbers in this case, I think, are telling. Colts are 30th in the NFL in pressure rate, 28.8% of opponent dropbacks. Now, there's context there. Some of the context is the Colts have not maybe had as many opportunities to rush the passer in advantageous down and distance situations because they've been giving up a ton of yards on the ground. Yeah. And you're letting teams get into those situations. Or, it's 2nd and 10, and you complete a 6-yard pass to a tight end, and all of a sudden 3rd and 4 is a lot different than 3rd and 8. So you maybe didn't have as many of those, which then magnifies the situations you do get on 3rd and 14 where you're not able to get a pass rush. I think teams have got the ball out quicker on the Colts this year, just kind of anecdotally. That's been a focus. You're seeing a lot of those. The Giants did it all the time. Those quick passes to Malik Neighbors, where you don't have time to get home on a pass rush. So there is some context to that number. But being 30th that's tough. That's really hard to win. You look at the other teams that are the Colts are down there with. It's the Panthers, the Patriots. You got the Falcons there, a team that might make the playoffs. The Titans, the Jaguars, the Cardinals, the Raiders.
Quarterback pressure is bottom of the league.
Yeah,
right there.
bottom pressure rate
stat,
right there.
Yeah, very telling stat as far as who goes. But hey, more answers are going to be.
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to throw out there. You talked about injuries. Like, think about you did have DeForest Buckner on
you missed
IR for a stretch.
Right.
Like,
Tyquan missed a lot of time.
So that is something that I would consider pretty significant in the grand scheme.
Absolutely.
Not to make excuses. I just think that those are like. I don't know how anymore we can attempt to, iterate the importance of DeForest Buckner and the influence that he makes when he is there up front. But I think that, the time that you miss him, you sorely, missed him.
The other thing, too, is like, I don't want to make pressure rate out to be this thing that's like the deciding factor. The team that's number one in pressure rate this year is the Cleveland Browns, and they might get the number one overall pick.
Really?
Yeah. So
is that just Myles Garrett?
Is that what that is? I mean, that's like it's having the best defensive player on the planet.
Is that what that is?
But you look there in fifth in pressure rate is the Chicago Bears, team that hasn't won in 10 games. Yeah. You've got the New York Jets at eighth there, a team that's having a season from hell. So it's not. It doesn't guarantee you success, but I do think it's a decent enough marker of. If you get after the quarterback consistently, you're gonna just have a better chance to win. And that doesn't necessarily mean that your front is failing to get after the quarterback all the time. It could be, hey, teams are scheming you out of it. They're committing extra bodies to it. They're not in these third and longs where you can really pin your ears back and get after the quarterback. So there are a lot of other factors that do go into it.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, the fan base and social media is talking quite a bit. We've heard and read and seen what everyone's saying over this whole thing. And obviously not playing for the playoffs this year puts us in that, sort of thing. But I want to say, like that game against Jacksonville, a lot of people roll their eyes and stuff like that when you talk about that. But I just want you guys to compound on me with me on this. That's an important game. This Jacksonville Jaguars game coming up is an important game, not only for players on the field, but for coaches, coaching staff, everybody, and the morale of this team going into the next year. I know, I'm searching. We're searching for stuff to grab at now, but I'm sorry, guys. You got to end on a positive note, and especially the future being bright here, young quarterback in the building, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to go take care of business. And this one, in that matter, I'm sorry if it's just me, this is a hugely important game for a lot of men in that locker room.
I asked Coach Steichen about this because I said, Shane, you have reiterated importance on finishing in so many scenarios over the course of the season. Talking about, finishing on tackles, finishing in the red zone, settling, or getting touchdowns, not settling for field goals in situations, finishing the first half of games, finishing the fourth quarter of games. I said, how important is it to finish this season with a win? And that's what he said too, just finishing and having a positive note to end on. Although the playoffs, aren't an opportunity, aren't a possibility any longer, still just the tone of finishing on a win collectively, at least kind of improves. Certainly it's not going to, overcome the disappointment necessarily that you're feeling, but it is certainly going to make you feel a heck of a lot better. And, with the division win at home, all of those things can really help just in terms of the morale that's within this locker room before, again, this team departs, and no, it will never be that same group together.
I think sometimes the thing that we lose sight of when we're talking about this, and this is kind of like collectively just people who are employed to talk and write and do these things about football players, is like how special it is for these guys to play in a game, to play in an NFL game, and to go out there. Like Ryan Kelly, I think, talked about it. Like, he was asked, like, if this is the end of your career at the Colts, he's going to be a free agent after this year. Like, what are you going to miss? And he kind of got choked up. He talked about, just like being out there with the guys. And like, that is so meaningful to a lot of players on this football team, that opportunity to go out and do it. And I don't want to discount that in the least bit. This game has no implications on the playoffs. You can write it off and say it doesn't matter, but there are going to be a lot of guys who are going to take that field on Sunday, and this game's going to matter to them. And that is how you finish the season. It's not necessarily about getting, certain stats, although, for Zaire Franklin, I think it matters, and it should matter that he leads the league in tackles. Yeah. That is an accomplishment that he can look back on at the end of his career and say, I led the NFL in tackles. That's a big deal. Alec Pierce could look back on this year and say, I led the NFL in yards per reception. That is an accomplishment. That is something that you should celebrate. But I think more than anything, it's just you get to celebrate being a football player. And this game, you might feel like it should be a letdown for these guys, but I do think there are enough veterans and pros in that locker room who are going to go out there and they are going to play like the stakes are as high as possible and give it the effort because they love what they do and they love playing football. They love playing with these guys on this team. And I do think that matters, and we absolutely should not lose sight of that.
And the way in which they respond this week, what you see out of guys this week in how they prepare and how they treat this game will tell you a whole lot about if those are the guys you want to bring back and you want to build upon for the future or not. That tells you everything.
I did this story in 2022, and to me it's like one that's just, it's going to be lodged in my brain as long as I cover the NFL. I talked to Ryan Kelly, DeForest Buckner, some of the other guys on the team in late December about what are you still putting your body through? Huh. I talked to Paris Campbell for it. What are you still putting your body through? And they all told me, to a man, you cannot, you cannot not take it seriously. Because if you go take the field on Sunday and you didn't do everything you could to get ready to play, you are doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your teammates a disservice. It's going to lead to only bad things for you. So there's only one way to go about playing in the NFL, and it's doing it the right way and doing everything you can. And I think those same guys, your Buckners, your Kellys, your Quentin Nelsons, who, by the way, is having an awesome football season. You want to talk about bright spots on this team. He's had one of his best seasons in Indianapolis, in my money.
Oh, no question.
But there are a lot of pros in that locker room who I think this is the week to step up and show there are a lot of young guys on this team who maybe have never experienced something like this before. And in those guys to step up and show them, hey, this is the last week of the year. We still prepare. We still go practice hard. We still go out and do all the little things right to go play. I do think that's important for this football game.
No more important than the quarterback position. Larra, I'll start with you. In your eyes, what's a successful offseason look like for Anthony Richardson? What does that look like in your eyes preparing for his third year in the NFL as a starter in this league? What does that look like for you? And I know we haven't had much to look at. He's been injured and whatnot, so coming off injury. But what does it look like for you?
I think developing a continued chemistry with the pass catchers within this offense, doing what it takes to get time with those guys. It's working out with guys individually. It's working out with those guys collectively, finding a way to get on the same page with those guys, because there have just been too many situations where you have drops and miscues, miscommunication in critical situations that all of those guys collectively have to find out, have to be on the same page. That's what you got to use this time to do. And I don't just mean spending time on the field together. You guys got to go out to dinner together. Maybe, you get out and you just learn about each other and you have to find that connection. I mean, I think that that's one of the things that you see about great teams and great offenses is that they have a dynamic in which you know exactly what you're going to get out of each and every guy week in and week out. And there is a level of, I'm going to give my all for this quarterback out there. I have complete faith, complete trust, in this guy, and I'm going to make sure that I'm getting in the exact right spot. I know my exact route. He can rely on me. I'm going to make sure that if he targets and comes my way, I'm going to be there for him. I'm going to make that grab. You've got to establish for me that level of cohesiveness and continuity across the offense, kind of starting with your quarterback.
I think it's just going to be important that, hopefully Anthony can head into this offseason healthy. Mm-hmm. That he didn't have that last year. His rookie year, you're going through combine and pro days and 30 visits and all that, and your head's spinning, and then you show up and here's this gigantic playbook, go learn it. I think an off season where, and he's still dealing with the back spasms. Mm-hmm. We'll kind of see what his availability is this week, but if he can go have a full healthy off season, I do think that will benefit him in 2025.
Hey, back spasm.
Oh, yeah.
Back spasm has been a touchy word around here for a thing. I just want to say this. As I've said before, preface it, I am not an extreme athlete. But at over 50 years old, I have back spasms about 2 or 3 times a year, and they're immobilizing, guys.
Yeah.
When I say immobilizing, I mean you can't move. You're walking good and everything, you feel a little twinge, and all of a sudden it goes zoop, and you're like, I can't bend down, I can't take a step, I can't do anything. Like, that's a back spasm. So for the young man's sake, I'm just going to say, I've been there on the other half as a guy up in the bleachers, but not as an elite athlete. But back spasms, they're not something to screw around with.
I just think continuity is going to be so important because there has been so much stop and start for this offense with, guys who have been in and out of the rotation. I think it's really been difficult to know exactly what this offensive identity is and can be, and for them to develop a lot just because that group has not been on the field together nearly enough this season. So to me, it's continuity, it's chemistry among the quarterback and those pass catchers. And they did do work last offseason. That's not to say this would be something novel, right? We know that they got together, last year. They had some time together, in different places and all of that. But you've got to do it, and to a different degree, a different level, with a different intention this year.
Well, definitely disappointed. Obviously, you Colts fans and followers of the NFL can understand our disappointment. Once again, I started this podcast by saying good morning, but it's not a good morning. It's morning with a U. But if you're going to celebrate these mornings with us, you're also going to celebrate the wins and championships with us. So thank you for being here, guys. I just wanted to say I appreciate you guys doing this, coming in, answering hard questions on this stuff. We're going to keep it short this week. We're going to go out there and get a win against the Jacksonville Jaguars and find out what offseason moves that will be in the hamper around the corner, because they'll be happening, whether that's pro personnel with the player, whether it's coaching staff, does not matter. Every year in the NFL, there is some changeover. We're going to bring you the latest on that. But Jacksonville Jaguars is the next thing up, and that's where I want to keep this one at, is to stay positive and go into the offseason with a victory against a team that you're better than.
Yeah, and then we'll have everything covered in the offseason.
And then we'll have everything.
The regular season may end, but our content doesn't stop.
Hey, somebody just have an answer for Brian Thomas.
Yep, please.
That's all I'm asking for.
Great one, because again, and I'm not taking
another really good player.
I'm not teeing off on a defense.
Really,
Thomas is really good.
Yeah,
really good player.
But it just seems like in this darn offense, when they have the superior athletes like the Malik Neighbors out there and the Josh Jacobs out there, their best players are having their best games against this defense. That needs to stop. That sort of thing needs to stop. So, once again, if you could say it, the game plan against the Jaguars is?
Stop Brian Thomas.
There it is. Stop Brian Thomas, the number 1 draft choice out of LSU. Guys, anything in closing here?
Can I throw just one kind of off the football field?
Please.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is our final podcast of 2024. It is always a delight getting to sit down and do this each week with you all. Are you all either big New Year's Eve resolutions people?
Oh, yeah, resolution, sure.
Yeah? How do we feel about the resolution?
I don't know about resolutions necessarily, but I mean, I guess it's not like a resolution to be like, I'm just going to start a healthier habit and see if that works. I've had some years where I've been successful and others where I have not. So yeah, I don't know. Last year I was successful. Joined Oswell Fitness. Shout out to Oswell.
There you go.
Yeah.
I've been going.
You were there at 6 a.m. today.
Yep,
Yeah.
going 6 a.m. multiple times a week ever since, and feel really
We
good
were
about
there
that.
on Christmas
Keep it
Eve
up,
together.
Yep.
So yeah.
So I'm making but we'll see. I don't know if I have anything up my sleeve this year. Maybe stop eating so many cookies.
I want to go to you.
You go to me?
I want to go to you. Yeah, tell me.
You already have the Daily Mile. What else is there?
The Daily Mile is kind of the every year, renewing tradition, so to speak. So yeah, got to keep up. Accomplished this past year, achieved year 5 of Daily Mile. So want to keep that going moving forward. I'm a little crazy about it. I like a resolution. It's shocking. I like a goal. I like a challenge. I like to have a little list. At the end of every year, I do a list of, so this year, 24 things for 2024.
Nice.
That I have accomplished, or, kind of things that I reflect upon positively, and then 25 goals for the upcoming year as
that's
for
great.
2025. So it's a little bit
That's very thorough. That's very thorough.
It's
very thorough. And the reason I'm saying that is because my fiance just last night and I were talking about resolutions in 2025, and we just kind of came onto it and said, to heck with the resolutions, what are we going to do to get better?
Ooh, I like that.
So that's what we did. We threw some off each other, and it's TBD because we still got some time before the new year comes in.
Yes. Yes.
But we said, hey, what are we going to do different to get better? So that's what our list is. And hopefully in a few of the 2025 shows coming up, I'll tell you if I'm either a failure, a complete failure, or actually I've done something.
Well, I can text your fiance and know if we're accomplishing these.
Okay, so one other thing that's just kind of off it is football related though. 8:45 p.m. for Notre Dame, Georgia. What are we doing?
Oh, that's right.
What are we doing?
Great kick, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, you got to take care of the West Coast. That's a CFP, so you got
yeah, Notre Dame and Georgia, famously West Coast teams.
I know, but I'm just saying.
The New Orleans, a West Coast city. Oh, yeah.
It's not the ratings,
the Phoenix
JJ.
What are we doing?
The ratings, yeah.
I know it's the ratings. 8:45.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
I go to sleep at 9 o'clock on a lot of days.
That'll be a 4-hour game. It really will. Those games end up being.
I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to be a zombie
1
on
o'clock.
Thursday because I'm going to be up watching that game.
1 o'clock.
But
in the morning.
Why? Why are we doing this to ourselves? Put the Fiesta Bowl on
Right.
at 8:45. That's in Glendale, not in New Orleans, Louisiana. Between two teams that are in the Eastern time zone, I'm over it.
They want to,
but I'm going to watch it anyway because I'm an idiot.
Plenty of time on Bourbon Street prior to the game.
That's right.
Oh God! Oh, that is going to be a
Debauchery.
Fresh sewer smell. I love it. And I love New Orleans, but I've been on Bourbon Street when it's been around, celebrations, Mardi Gras, and Super Bowls included. And, it gets a little.
yeah.
it gets a little.
I'm already tired thinking about it. But again, I'm an idiot, so I will be up watching that whole
Give me
game.
a fast twitch and you'll be just fine.
Exactly. I'm probably gonna pound one of those fast twitches, which are delicious, by the way, and have 200 milligrams of caffeine. Pounding that thing around like 10:30 p.m. to stay
you'll be
awake.
up till 6 in the morning. You and Tucker, what's going on the eve? Anything? You guys going out? You getting to go after it? New Year's Eve?
No, we have a great tradition with our friends, the Hardys.
Hey, Hardys.
Yeah, we're hanging with the Hardys. We got a good
At Hardee's? At Hardee's?
That'd be great.
Hardy party.
No, at Hardee's, the restaurant.
No Frisco Melts for us. They do have the Hardy
Quick
fam
on your
does have
feet
a
on Frisco Melts.
Going to Hardee's once or twice. Frisco.
You knew a menu item at Hardee's. That was
French
great.
toast sticks? What? Come on. Let's go. No, we do have a great menu, a great spread coming up. So actually, I got to go to the store tonight so I can get everything ready to go.
And
Frisco Melts.
And I heard from your social media, you and your wife Betsy are headed to a rave that starts at 11:30.
We're big partiers these days. Yeah.
No, what is
Do
it?
you hold on? Do you do? Oh, I don't know if I should say. Do you queue up the countdown for the kiddos? Like,
so last year I missed it because we had the game against the Raiders, and then the previous year's bedtime was at 7 o'clock. So just they wouldn't know. But I don't know. We'll see this year.
okay,
We'll see.
little ball drop.
I will also not be awake at midnight.
Yeah, right,
I can
right.
guarantee you
I'm
that.
with you on that, JJ. I think Joe Wright's who we all know from Colts Audio Network and all the works he's done. The former player does great. He says at about 9 o'clock, he always resets the clocks.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, kids, it's
Well, he
almost
has a
midnight.
gaggle of children.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. He's like 12 kids. So at about, like 8:45, it's like, hey, 15 minutes, it's going to be. It's
a good move.
He kind of does the move. But guys, I appreciate it. Let's have some fun next week.
Frisco Melts for everybody.
Frisco Melts and French toast sticks for everybody. And I just, again, thank you both for being here. And also thank you for watching because this is tough times. We wish we were coming at you with a little bit of different temperature in this studio in our makeshift living room here. But we're going to keep giving you the latest and greatest, especially with these two. At Larra Overton on Twitter X, at JJ Stankevitz, and of course, Colts.com has the latest. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Thanks for our Colts Audio Network listeners. Ava, thanks for all you do behind the camera. Wish we were coming at you with a little more champagne and balloons and everything, but you know what? It's soon, right around the corner. May take us next year or the year after, but this team will get there. Thanks for everything you guys do, all right? Talk to you then.